Welcome back to Surviving Sexual Violence in Uganda. I am your host, Nakatova Sudematovu, and today we're going to have a two-part discussion on suicide prevention. Welcome. So, suicide is one of the most challenging topics to bring about when we are supporting someone who is struggling with the side effects of sexual violence or victim of who has been a victim of a crime or someone who has been traumatized by an event. It is okay for us to also understand, we as caregivers, that that is something that is a topic that maybe someone may not feel comfortable bringing up. So it's our role as caregivers to ask the question when we speak to anybody who is struggling with a crime, who has been a victim of a crime, or anybody who's feeling victimized in some way. Most people will thank you, really, or maybe they'll be relieved when they're asked directly as to whether they are feeling suicidal. Feelings of suicidal are normal because when people experience traumatic events, they think about suicide. Thinking about suicide does not necessarily mean that someone is going to complete a suicide. So it is important for us to also, as caregivers, to think about what our biases, what our stereotypes, what do we think about suicide, what our values are before we embark on those conversations with the person who is struggling with a suicidal ideation, or someone who's not been thinking of, who has not brought up the subject to you, that your values do not actually impact the way you're going to provide service to this person or support to this person, especially when they respond by saying that, yes, I have been thinking about suicide. Suicide is used sometimes as an option, is seen as an option by those who are struggling with a lot of issues. Presenting issues could be mental illness, it could be they are struggling with the effects of sexual violence, they are chronically ill. People think about these things, and I think for us to bring out the conversation in the open, is less stigmatizing for the person who is struggling. So how do we ask the question? I think most people is how it is the challenge. How do we ask the question when someone is struggling with these issues that are going on in their lives? I think the most important thing is for us to be very comfortable with asking the question directly. Are you thinking of completing a suicide? I know that there are lots of things going on in your life. I just want to know whether you've been thinking about suicide. If someone says, no, I've not been thinking about suicide, then you let it go. But if someone says, yes, I have been thinking about suicide, then there's an invitation for you to start talking about suicide and letting them know how, and asking them how, or letting them know of how you're going to support them. It is important for us to make sure that we are calm when we people disclose that they have been thinking about suicide, that we are not panicked, that we are not talking about calling the police on them or threatening and bringing all the Bible verses that that you think will prevent suicide. All these things that we think, or values that we have, will impact the way we provide service to somebody or provide support to someone who is experiencing suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts are common, like I said, to anybody who is struggling with the effects of trauma. Trauma is a debilitating issue, a factor in people's lives, and it could impede the way people seek support. So it is important again for us to start thinking about, if someone comes to us with an issue such as a sexual assault, that we ask the question and we ask directly whether that person is thinking about suicide. But there are also other signs that would indicate or could alert us to think that somebody might be contemplating suicide. That is sometimes we might observe that the person is not feeling well all the time. They're talking about not wanting to end it all. People who sometimes speak like that might be contemplating suicide. Again, you check in, because they might be saying that, but they're not thinking about suicide. So it's important for us to be aware of the appearances. Is the person suddenly unkempt? Doesn't care, their hygiene is off, if they have mental illness, they're not taking their medications. All these things that might alert us to someone that they are not doing well. I would like to hear what you're thinking about this information, but also most importantly, I want to know if you have come across someone who is suicidal and how you have supported them. I think it's important for us to get to hear what you have to say about how you support those who are struggling with suicidal ideation. And again, we have to think about suicidal ideation in relation to risk factors such as mental illness. Sometimes people who have mental illness might think about suicide. Sometimes people who are hospitalized all the time, recurring hospitalization, visits to the hospital might make someone feel suicidal because they feel hopeless. They feel like they're a burden to other people. Uh, Bankruptcy can make someone feel suicidal. COVID-19, where people have lost their employment, people have lost their livelihood, people might contemplate suicide. So there are many factors that could lead someone to believe that ending their life is an option. So let me know what your thoughts are on this video, and if you're new to this channel, feel free to subscribe. But most importantly, I also want to hear how you have supported those who are struggling with suicidal ideation. Until then, my friends, take care of yourselves and others. Goodbye. Welcome back to the second part of suicide prevention, and this video is going to focus on intervention, skill building, and how we as service providers, or those who are caregivers for those who are struggling with the effects of sexual violence and are thinking about completing a suicide, how we can approach the situation. So normally what I would suggest, I ask the person, are you feeling suicidal? And when they say no, then I let it go. When they say yes, I am thinking of killing myself, then I ask, when do you plan on killing yourself? So I ask, what is the plan? If they say, I have already taken medications, then it is my role as a person, because I have a role in my society, in my community, to keep people alive. It's my profession, but it's also because I care about people and I want to preserve life. I would then go about going to find support for this person, either to call an ambulance or get anyone who can support us to have this person be transported to the hospital. In some situations where someone has not taken any medication but is thinking about killing themselves later on this evening or maybe later on in the night, I will find by what means are they going to complete a suicide. Are they going to kill themselves by hanging? Are they going to kill themselves by taking their medications? Are they going to kill themselves by with the use of a knife? What means are they going to use? And then I would work around them coming up with a safety plan, and also finding out if they have any resources that can support them in preserving life and keeping safe. Sometimes one of the things that I think we overlook is the use or misuse of alcohol. Sometimes people might say things like, I am going out with my friends to use drugs or to drink a lot of alcohol. I ask them, is this part of their plan of completing a suicide? How many people are going to be drinking? How many people are they going to be drinking with? How many people are they going to be using drugs with? So I try as much as possible to make sure, because the plan is not imminent, they're not going to kill themselves right now. Then I start thinking about how many people are looking at ways of trying to minimize harm using a harm reduction approach, where I might ask, how many people are you going to be drinking with? Are these the safe people with you? Maybe are these people also thinking that they are these people also having suicidal thoughts? Then I start looking at a safety plan that would keep this person safe. And the safety plan is very important because it is part of keeping the person safe, but it is also a safety plan for the person I am supporting. So it is very important for me to approach the safety plan as theirs, and they're the ones who have to tell me about the things that keep them safe. I cannot start telling them things that are going to keep them safe, because those are not things that they normally use to keep themselves safe, or they might be new, but they're not used to them. So I keep asking, what keeps you safe? What would keep them safe if they go drinking or drugging? If they are going to go and telling me if they're going to go and do any kind of harmful event or activity, what is it that might keep them safe? Because again, I also reiterate to the person who is seeking support that the reason we're talking about this is because I need them to be safe, but they are also talking to me about it because they also want to be safe. Sometimes I might explore the notion of ambivalence. I bring that piece in by asking questions like, tell me a little bit about who would be the most affected if you completed a suicide. I also ask questions like, can you tell me what are the reasons for leaving for you? And what are some of the reasons for dying? When people tell me about their reasons for living, I also have to check in about the reasons for dying, because those two are very important. If I only speak or hear or continue to talk only about the reasons for living, then it minimizes or is kind of dismisses the person's reasons for dying. For them, those reasons are valid and they need to be heard. So it is important for us to keep that in mind, that we explore the ambivalence and also finding out the reasons for dying. Ambivalence is normally around, it's almost a dance where people are say things like, well, I want to die, but then I don't think that that would serve any purpose for da 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 da, or I want to die, but I wouldn't want to leave my children or my animals, depending on what they hold value to. So I stick with that, and I keep on asking more questions about, tell me more about these people or these animals and how they bring value to your life. It is important for us to explore those. I urge those who provide support to those who are struggling with suicide to spend a lot of time with them, because they once they're in your space, it is important for you then to provide time so that they're able to explore those feelings that have led to them feeling that they're not worthy, or they are a burden to other people, and find out whether that is the truth. So it's also important for us to make sure that we are not contracting with the survivor, or I mean the person who is contemplating a suicide, because sometimes when we contract, We are saying like things like, okay, can you not kill yourself? Can you write a sign here that when by noon you would not have killed yourself. A contract, anything written is not something that is favorable in prevention or interventions with suicide, because normally they are not based on the survivor or the person you're supporting's interest. The safety plan is a more of an a participatory and a collaborative effort, but mostly it is something that the survivor or the person who's contemplating suicide is coming up with. So I normally ask that the person I'm supporting provide me at least with 10 safety ways of keeping safe. And they will tell me those ways, and I believe them, because this is their contract, I mean, this is their support, their safety plan, that they will be able to follow through with it. I would like to hear what you think about, what you've thought about this discussion. I would like to hear your comments. I thank you so much for listening to me, and more will come as we continue to have this discussion, because we will get so much feedback from you. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, and also let us know how you've supported those who are struggling with suicidal ideation. Remember to believe in those who are coming to you, because they have strength, they have survived this situation, and let them know that they are the drivers of their lives, and also the plans that they are putting in place. Until then, my friends, take care of yourselves and others. Bye.